Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of Conversations with Cara. I'm Tara Harper, Chief External Affairs Officer here at Cara Collective, and it is such a pleasure to be with you today. For those of you who are new to our community, Conversations with Cara is an ongoing series of discussions we host throughout the year where we bring together leaders and experts from across sectors to explore issues connected to our mission of eradicating poverty through the power and purpose of employment, and to share inspiring stories of people and organizations making a real difference in our communities. On this last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm excited to be moderating today's conversation where we'll get to celebrate and honor the essential contributions of the Latino community to our economy, our workforce, and our culture. While Latinos share a common language, we come from many different countries, each with its own rich culture and identity. I myself am a proud Dominican and Puerto Rican. Like many immigrant families, my parents came to the United States seeking better economic opportunities. They were fortunate to attend college in New York before returning to the Dominican Republic, where I was later born. After several years of moving back and forth, we finally settled in Chicago in the early 1980s. This experience is not unique to my family. It is one that is shared by many immigrant families, but it absolutely shaped my understanding of the world and my place in it. My parents instilled in me the values of education, hard work, and unwavering resilience. It is this belief system that has fueled my career and my commitment to ensuring that economic opportunity become more readily available to all. As we begin today's conversation, I would be remiss not to acknowledge that this is an incredibly difficult time for our city and our country. The widespread deportations are having a devastating impact on families and entire communities. And while we cannot yet begin to measure the long-term effects on our economy and society, we see clearly the pain and disruption they are causing today. In moments like these, it is more important than ever that we stand with Chicago's Latino community, amplifying their voices, honoring their resilience, and celebrating the immense contributions we are making to our city and beyond. It is with that spirit, I would like to welcome our guest speakers, Katia Nuquez, Director of Little Village Portfolio for the Robert R. McCormick Foundation, and Veronica Herrero, Executive Vice Chancellor of City Colleges and Vice President of the City Colleges Foundations. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here with me today. Before we get started, just a very quick note of logistics. I encourage everyone to submit questions throughout this conversation by putting them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many as we possibly can during our Q&A portion at the end of the panel conversation. And with that, let's dive in. As I shared in my intro, Latinos are not a one-size-fits-all. We come from a variety of rich cultures and backgrounds and histories. So I'd love to learn how each of your stories and backgrounds help shape the work you do. Veronica, can I kick it off to you first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tara. And so glad to be here with you both, who, I'm inspired by just professionally, and who also I can call friends too. And during these times, as you just described, Tara, I think, we just need each other more than ever. And I'm just really happy to be in this space and hoping we can provide others with that sense of community as well. So as you did say, I work at City College. I'm president of the foundation, and EVC over at City Colleges, and really quite proud of that. And it is because of where I started. So you told your story. I'm the daughter of two Mexican immigrants. Our family came my dad came in the late 60s, my mom in the early 70s. And like so many, like your family, like so many other immigrant families, came with a dream and a vision. In my case, like my parents did not have college degrees. My dad, he didn't complete elementary school. But you know what? Our people come with an entrepreneurial spirit, a can-do attitude, the strongest work ethic, and so many practical skills and talent that is to be tapped once they arrive in this country. So that was my parents. And they actually first were on the south or west side of the city. And then we moved to Albany Park, which is where I grew up, which, sadly, has been in the news lately, and which really breaks my heart because part of what makes that community so special is that it is full of immigrants, people just like my parents. I remember growing up, the people that I grew up with, they're all like from all over the world. And it was they had a tiendita on one corner. They had a Filipino bakery on another corner. My dad was a mechanic, and so he worked at a shop, and so there was just. And then my dad eventually started his own shop, auto repair shop, which is what got me and my sisters through college. And dad, at nearly 80 years old, is still working 6 days a week. Okay. Like that is just who we are. That's who my family is. And I think that's, I don't know that everyone should be working at 80. I'm not recommending that because I'm trying to get my dad to retire. But we do come in with that kind of ethic and mentality. And, when I think about what all of that means to me today, Albany Park, the city of Chicago, the immigrant community made my childhood and my upbringing so special. Chicago has done so much for me. And and I have the opportunity in the roles that we just talked about to be able to create that and help shape that for Chicagoans across the city. My dad did ESL. He actually started as a mechanic and then he didn't speak English, was struggling with just navigating. He was at a dealership and he quit because he said, I need to grow and I can't do it without English. So he went to Truman College, took English, learned enough to get back into the game, and he navigated. And I mean, look where he is today. We truly provide that launching pad for immigrants, for people who need to get their GED, for students like ours who, we often, especially with Latinas and Latinos, we have so many responsibilities at home, or restrictions where we can't leave like the 1 mile vicinity as Latinas sometimes. City Colleges provides that launching pad, that ability to access more. And I really, really, when I think about how lucky I am, like my heart just swells because I do have the opportunity to give back in this way.
Love everything about that, Veronica. Katia. And in full disclosure, Katia and I have known each other for the better part of almost 2 decades, I shall say. But would love to hear a little bit more about your background, Katia.
Thank you, Tara. And it's a pleasure to be with both of you here, of course. Again, like Veronica said, colleagues and friends. So, a great opportunity. Thank you for inviting me. So, everything that I do is shaped by my cultural identity. I was born and raised in Ecuador. I was in my 20s when I left my country, and um, I recognize my own privilege. I came to the States probably like with 60% of the English that I know now. I, studied English throughout my elementary and high school years. And the other thing that happened in those years, I came to the States for graduate school. So I had finished my economic studies in Ecuador, and I also did music as a little one. So came here for graduate school, but as you know, most of us, I guess, that are looking for better opportunities, it's not like I had significant resources to attend graduate school. So I had to, work, and definitely as a graduate student, I had actually 3 jobs while I was attending my master's program. But like I said, my identity, I was formed, right? I was in my 20s when I came, and as an immigrant woman, I think that gives you a particular lens, right? And a particular motivation for everything you do. I mean, I have experienced many things that like the immigrant community experiences, right? Sometimes you're not heard, you're not seen, right? And that definitely provided me
Mm.
that experience that I did not feel the same way, right? So um, I do believe in the power of opportunity and the power of belonging. So when I came to the States after I graduated, I joined the international development field for a few years. I went to Peru, I went to Ecuador, I did some work. I was really longing for belonging to a community. And unfortunately, when I was doing international development work, I was like 3 months here, 3 months there, maybe a couple of months in each country, but I wanted to like really like grow roots. So I had an opportunity in 2005 to basically come back. And I was so fortunate that I was hired at Enlace Chicago. Back then, Chewy, our congressman now, was the executive director at Enlace, a little village based organization. And they hired me, right? One of those weird things that happened because in Chicago, you don't want nobody that nobody sends. So he hired me. He didn't know me, and that journey really, really has shaped my life in a different way because I was completely like part of the community for many years. I stayed actually with the organization for 17 years, but more than anything, I became a part of that community. Like, I lived and you know, did everything basically recreational and otherwise in Little Village. So I felt that love, that being embraced by the Mexican and Mexican American community. And that's what we do, right? Like that's part of the values that we bring, that value of unity, that value of resilience, that values, the family values, the community values, the embracing each other values. I think that definitely shapes the work that I do. As I said before, I am very, very um, careful about listening to people, about making sure that people don't feel like they don't belong, right? And that's very important to me. And recognizing that our power is in collective and our progress is in collective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I so appreciate each of you taking a moment to share a little bit more about your stories. And while I've known both of you for a while, I continue to learn more about kind of what brought you here and what fuels your passion for doing this work. And I could not agree more that this sense of hard work, this belief in being like very resilient, and our passion for community and family are shared values across our culture. And I think each of our stories really helps to illustrate just how powerful that is. And I think how we all come together to create that sense of collective unity in the work that we're doing. So, I could spend all hour long talking about our backgrounds, but I really want to start to kind of move the conversation to talk about how the Latino community is shaping our entire economy. And I'll start with a couple of stats. In 2016, the Latino Donor Collaborative created the concept of the US Latino GDP to document the economic impact of US Latinos in our country. At that time, they measured that Latino workforce contributes more than $2 trillion to the US economy. By 2023, that figure had already doubled, reaching $4 trillion in just an 8-year period of time, and moving us from the seventh to the fifth largest economy in the world, if ranked independently. As we look locally here in Chicago, the Illinois Department of Employment Security reports that more than a quarter of our entire workforce is Latino. The contributions and the importance of our population cannot be denied, nor can it be understated. And yet, what we know is that still so many barriers to employment widely exist. And so, Katia, I'm going to start with you. And how have you seen in your world the Latino communities in neighborhoods like Little Village, like Pilsen, overcome some of these barriers to workforce?
Yes, like you mentioned, right? Like Latino communities and Latino neighborhoods definitely help shaped the identity of a city. And my experience has been mostly in Pilsen and Little Village, mostly Little Village. But their contributions have shaped Chicago identity for more than half a century. As you know, both Pilsen and Little Village originally like a Czech and Eastern European working class neighborhoods in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And Pilsen became, a place where Mexican immigrants started to arrive in the 40s and the 50s. So, but then we had urban renewal and displacement when UIC was built. So the family started moving a little west, like happens all the time, and the Latino families were pushed. So it became more of a cultural home, right? With the presence of, again, the university also had that kind of like close by, but Pilsen became a cultural home. Uh, there's murals, music, community organizing, everything flourished there. But in the 1970s, again, that shift with the building of the university, etc., made that many of those families moved to Little Village. So now you have uh, Pilsen that remain it's about 68% Latino now, but you have Little Village that became about 93% Mexican and Mexican American. So you have two neighborhoods that are basically representing Latino culture. As you know, Little Village is still people call it the Mexican capital of the Midwest, not only for the amount of families that are of Mexican and Mexican American, background, but also because of how the businesses in the economic corridor in Little Village really reflect Mexico, right? Like it's so you go there and you can actually like see all of this. And um another thing that people talk about a lot is like the small businesses in Little Village, entrepreneurship spirit. We have about 1,000 businesses in Little Village that produce almost $1 billion in sales per year,
Mm.
and those 1,000 businesses also employ thousands of people. We have about 29,000 people that are in the labor market that are from Little Village. So from a population of about 70,000, those 16 but that belong to the labor force are about 30,000. So within that, you do have several thousand that are able to stay in the neighborhood and get employed by these 1,000 businesses, right? However, there's a significant number that is not going to be there, right? Because maybe you have like a few thousand jobs in Little Village, but the vast majority of those community residents have to go out of Little Village and look for employment. And there's the barriers that you both were mentioning, right? Like there's language barriers that are very real when it comes to employment. I'm like thinking about my family and my friends that are arriving, and where can they go to work if they don't speak any English, right? There's other barriers, like, of course, the fact that about 25 to 27% of the community residents are undocumented. So that's another barrier. So that's the reason why Little Village is what we call a working community, but a working poor community, right? Because they have jobs and most people are employed, but the income is very low. Another thing that we should notice, like that, is per capita income in Little Village has been it's $20,000, and household income is about $47,000 compared to 70,000 in the city of Chicago. So it's much lower. And the other aspect that is good to highlight, it's been there for over a decade. So it doesn't move a lot.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, we have seen a little bit of movement from the 30,000s now to the 40,000s in the last year because educational levels are also significantly growing in Little Village. So we have a graduation rate now that is at the same level as the city of Chicago, about 84% in 23, when it was 57% when I first came, like those 20 years ago. So things are happening that will make some difference, but we also have to be, aware of the fact that many people, when they start making more money, they move out of the neighborhood, right? So we have seen that as well. So
Yeah. No, Kathy, I think that was a really perfect segue to kind of, what we want to talk a little bit about with Veronica. And you touched on so many, like a number of key issues, from just the language barriers and community displacement, the large number of Latinos, and really in concentrated like 2 or 3 neighborhoods in the city. But that low kind of average income earned has remained pretty low over the last several years and decades. But at the same time, we're now starting to see this increase in educational outcomes. And so I think that's a really perfect segue. And Veronica, I know an event maybe a few months ago and was listening to you all talk about how there has been this huge increase in the Latino population at city colleges. And I believe that you guys are sitting at over 50% of all of your students are coming from identify as Latino or Hispanic. And so I'm wondering if you can just reflect a little bit about kind of how that enrollment has changed over the years, and what are you guys doing to support access to education, particularly for this population?
Yeah, so we have seen a real surge in enrollment, especially since fall of 21. So just like as we were starting to emerge from the pandemic, we've actually seen a 31% increase in Latino males since fall of 21, and a 17% increase in Latinas, which is truly incredible. I think there are a number of factors that play into this. One is, as Katia described, like Latinos are just they're completing degrees at higher rates, right, than they have in the past, which is great. And Latinos do traditionally come to community college, and now it's at even greater rates. The reason why? Because we offer an option that is close to home, and so many of us need to be near home, especially as times are difficult, and we all are just such a tight community and depend on each other from during the pandemic, and now I think we're probably going to see even more Latinos staying close to home to support their families. So we're again just very lucky to be in that position to be able to support our communities during this time. The other reasons why, I mean, our relationship with Chicago Public Schools, it has deepened significantly, especially since Chancellor Salgado started his leadership here. And with that, I mean, I'll tell you, our early college. So early college, it's the opportunity for high school students to be able to earn college level coursework while they're still in high school. And this has been a big initiative by Chancellor and our board to really increase those numbers. And if you look across the state with early college, a lot of times it is very inequitable, very, very inequitable. You'll see, white students really getting more of those opportunities, and you'll see Black and Latino students, taking advantage of that. Here in Chicago, because it has been truly intentional with Chicago Public Schools and city colleges, we are actually serving Latinos and Black students in early college at a proportional level. So, we're not under, what's the word I'm looking for? We're serving them at the proportional level of Chicago Public Schools population. And so that's amazing, right? So now we've got more Latinos and Black students finishing high school with 15 credits or more, ready to be transferred into their college experience. And also they're finishing with associate degrees. Last year we had like 130 students or something like that completing with their associate's degree.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. And our goal is to continue to increase those numbers. The other thing is Star Scholarship. So Star Scholarship is now in its 10th year, and that has been growing over time. But we've served over 21,000 Star Scholars since its inception. 2/3 are Latinos, right? So we've got all of these Latinos really taking advantage of this wonderful opportunity. And then taking that and then transferring to a 4-year institution, which is tremendous. Then they've saved like $60,000 or more dollars, right, in starting here. And then I'll just say that we've got our value proposition, right? And I think that our value proposition, I would say, is speaking to many, and to all across the city. And that is, in what we offer in terms of programs. We've got short-term certificates. So students, like if they're needing to work and just need to level up or looking for a higher paying job, they can earn a basic certificate in a very short period of time, or advanced certificate. That's attracted a lot of, especially male enrollment. And then they come back for more, or they stay for more, which has really been wonderful. And then I got that you mentioned how the income level, they're slow to change in the community, and some of it is attributed to people then moving out once they attain the degree. But I also think that part of it is because the pathways are slow. For you get your degree, and then you have to find a job, and if you don't have the network or the social capital to attain those opportunities, then there's this huge delay, right, in actually getting to upwardly mobile career pathways. And so what we've been doing more of are apprenticeship programs, and more students are taking advantage of that. That is the most accelerated pathway to earning family sustaining careers right here in Chicago, right? So, you're an apprentice with city colleges, and you have an opportunity to work, do your work-based learning with, it could be healthcare, it could be manufacturing, it could be business and technology. The companies open the door to you then, and then they open it wide open once you're done with the degree, and then you have a permanent job. So I think all of those offerings are speaking to our students, and our students are smart. Like, they know if they come here, they will save so much money and time to get to family sustaining career opportunities. So those are some of the reasons, Tara. I could go on and on.
No, I love it. And I really do appreciate how intentional City Colleges is being about creating these different pathways and these different opportunities, and really thinking about what does it mean to create a pathway to family sustaining wages that allows people to also break cycles of poverty, right? And so you guys I think you're being so incredibly creative and innovative. And I know, here at Cara Collective, we've had a partnership with City Colleges for a long time, and really have been trying to increase that partnership. I think that idea of intentionality, how do we do this work? How do we think about these different untapped talents and populations throughout our city that have not always had this level of access, have not always had this opportunity to think about, whether it's access to certification programming or GED classes or higher education, right? Like, that path to those who want a degree should be able to have that path for them. And it should not cost them 60 grand a year. That means that it is not easily accessible. And so just really kudos, if that's a word that I could use on this panel, kudos to City Colleges for all that you guys are doing in this area, particularly for our city. I'm going to switch gears just for a quick moment. And I know we talked a little bit, you had mentioned small businesses at the top, and we're talking about how it really is kind of like the driving force in creating creating economic mobility. And it's also a really great source of pride for the Latino community. I think that this is also baked into our culture in a lot of ways. This idea that we can start our own businesses and drive the workforce in our own way it's really become part of our DNA. And you see it in Pilsen, you see it in Little Village, you really see it in a lot of areas where there's a concentration of Latinos. And so I want to just kind of talk a little bit about how the McCormick Foundation is prioritizing investments in communities by supporting the development of small businesses. We know that like Latino owned businesses are amongst the fastest growing sector in the last 30 years. And so thoughts on how the McCormick Foundation is continuing to support this effort of small businesses.
Thank you for that question, Tara. And I am going to kind of like start with the big picture thinking here, right? Like you both mentioned economic mobility, and I think that it's so interesting. I've been a witness or like both a witness and an implementer, I guess, of the quality of life plan in Little Village, and I've seen the development of quality of life plans in many neighborhoods, but definitely much more knowledgeable about the one in Little Village for 20 years now, right? Because I've been in that community for that long. So they developed a 2005, 2013, and now they have a 2024. It's so interesting when you look at those plans, the trajectory and the growth. When you look at the first plan, the goals and the strategies reflect a community that needed so much in terms of investment. So you had there, that the goal was to have ESL available for the community residents. You had the desire for after school programs, for post-secondary support. All of that was in the first plan. And then you see a second plan, not with now 30 organizations that worked in the plan. You had like 100 in the second plan. And then you have more than that in the third plan. But you can see the trajectory and the growth, right? So the third plan now is not just about the basics. It's not just talking about improving education because we need a better graduation rates, because you need more people that have a high school diploma and all of those things. We're thinking about economic mobility. How do we support the community and the residents so that they can have better jobs, better income, as a collective? So the third plan talks about businesses. It just talks more about housing, about ownership, about all of the things that you didn't see in the first plan. So you kind of think about Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. Once you are able to move from only thinking about the basic food, violence prevention programs, and then you see a community that has actually seen a significant difference in those indicators, whether the shootings, homicides, whether the graduation rates, college entrance, retention, then you can think a little bit more about what's my future going to look like when I retire. Do I have some plan for that? So uh, because you're talking about the small business community, what it looks in Chicago. We know that in the metro region in Chicago, about 24% of businesses are Latino owned. That's more than the national average, and we have seen a significant growth. In Little Village, 3 of 4 businesses are Latino, right? Because again, the population is 90 something percent Latino. So in Little Village is out of those 1,000 that I talked about, 750 are Latino. And in Pilsen, there's an estimation that about 70% are Latino, and they don't have exact numbers because the same study was done in Chicago. But we have very, very high levels of Latino businesses. Now, the McCormick Foundation that you were asking us, what are we doing in terms of that? We basically follow the guidance of the community when it comes to what the foundation is going to focus on. The foundation many years ago decided to do uh, place-based grant making, which we are one of the few foundations in Chicago that define that as we're going to focus in a few neighborhoods. Most place-based foundations do city. That's their place-based, choice, or state, right? Like we narrowed it down much more because we want to see more impact. And when we put our resources in a specific geography, we are able to see that. Now, I'm not saying that that's all we do and that, we only do place-based grant making. We do in certain areas, we do support systems change and things like that in education, for example. But we also have put a lot of effort and a lot of resources, particularly in two neighborhoods in Chicago, which are Englewood and Little Village. They have a neighborhood that is primarily Latino and immigrant, and you have a neighborhood that is primarily Black. So we're putting a lot of resources there. To give you an idea, right now we have approximately $21 million in active grants in Little Village, and that varies, of course, right, year after year. So like I said, we try to follow the guidance of the community in terms of what they prioritize. And that's why we closely look at their quality of life plans and what they have put in there in terms of put most of our resources in education because that was a reflection of the plan and in violence prevention, etc. But as the community has moved to economic mobility, we have started putting more and more resources into supporting small businesses and also employment. So we have a few programs that are specific about trying to support the families so that they move from that kind of employment that gives you the basics where you are not receiving necessarily benefits and it's definitely just a low wage job to like educating people so that they can go to the next level, go to the next tier in terms of both income but also benefits, right? So we have right now programs, to give you an example, with Lewis University. They are doing a medical assistance program, a solar energy, a carpentry program. That's a 2-year commitment where they are going to support 240 people to attain the certificate for that. We work with Instituto de Progreso Latino, supporting their nursing professionals. And we are working on a big initiative with the City Colleges of Chicago that we cannot uh, talk about all the particulars, but we're working on that as well. So a lot of these initiatives and opportunities that are going to strengthen our workforce, that are going to offer them an opportunity again to better wages and more sustainable jobs that can help them and their families. And the same way with the small business community, we work with Little Village Community Foundation in Little Village, more businesses, training them, technical support, and we also are, in conversations with the Little Village Chamber of Commerce so that we can continue the partnership and the relationship to support the community as they move from again the kind of like the basic needs to what's now, what's next.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Katya. And one of the things that I love hearing that there's a upcoming partnership that the two of you are working on. You know, I always say that Chicago is the smallest big city around, and for those of us who care deeply about this organization or the city, we are often deeply connected. And so it's not surprising that you two are also working together your organizations are working together to think about how we can better support our community. And McCormick Foundation, of course, is an incredible supporter of the work that we do here at Cara Collective, particularly with our place-based strategy in Englewood. They've been incredibly supportive as we think about economic mobility and employment in Englewood and what does that look like. And so I want to stick on that thread just for a little bit, because I think you said something that was really key, that the quality of life plan that many neighborhoods have, it's such a great indicator of where a community is, where the economy of that community is, in reference to that idea of mobility, and how do we think about what is needed every 5 or every 10 years in order to keep progressing. And one of the things here at Cara that we're really focused on is not only are we finding the employment partners that are going to provide jobs of today, but we're also thinking about what are the growth and emerging industries in our city, and how do we start preparing today for those jobs, for that employment, for that economy that is probably going to be here sooner. Sometimes we think about these things as they're far off, but they're really not. Technology and AI, everything is just right around the corner. And so, Veronica, I'm curious as to what does that mean for city colleges when you guys start to think about how do you start to prepare young talent today for some of these jobs that are coming down the pipeline? What are you looking at? How are you focused on that?
Yeah, and I will get directly to your question in just a second, but because you were talking about quality of life plans, so city colleges in Chicago, we are was in our last strategic plan, which we're going to be celebrating because we're wrapping up 5 years. I'm really excited. I was chief strategy officer when I first started, and so it is a big part of what kept me here too. But it was a big deal when we set our framework, and one of the key levers of that strategic plan was economic responsiveness, right? And that was to remain agile and responsive to the needs of the city and the needs of our communities. So we take both a macro approach of, what are the fastest growing industries? We work with employers to co-create curricula that is aligned with the needs, which allows us to stay up to date with all of the changes that you're talking about, which I'll get to in just a minute, but also to be responsive to community. And that means working with community through our advisory councils or our employer councils. And at ABI, we have such a tight, and we have our dean there, Dean Rodriguez, Alicia Rodriguez. She has just a fantastic relationship with community leaders, employers in the community. And she has been able to develop a strategic plan that we've been working on together for the last few years, because we want to make sure to get it right and time it right to be responsive to the community in Little Village. And what Gate was saying about how the quality of life plans have evolved over time, resonated with what I've been seeing and what we've been working on for that strategic plan. So what is exciting, really exciting. I might be stealing her thunder a little bit, but just I'll give you a sense for it. What the community asked for through their quality of life plans were, what is the type of talent that they needed to get to the next level, right? Like that was one of the things they were solving for. And they need healthcare professionals. They need social workers. They need more community health workers. They need, strong, developed, and confident nonprofit leaders and organizers. Yes. They need translators and interpreters. So we are developing a whole new phase of expansion at ABI to offer those pathways in bilingual format. Okay. This is going to be like our hub for bilingual programming. And we're really, really excited about that. So that is one way that we, work to be responsive. And I'm really proud of that work and proud of all the work that Dean Rodriguez has done over at ABI, Arturo Velázquez Institute, on the Southwest side. To your question about really you mentioned AI. And yes, AI is absolutely going to have, I'm not sure if everyone fully understands the impact it is going to have on jobs, but more than having, there are lots of opinions out there about how it will impact the, jobs of tomorrow, of the future, of today, right? There, because it's already being impacted. I am not one of those individuals that think that all of these jobs are going to get eliminated. I don't think that's true. I think the nature of how we do our jobs is being significantly changed. Yes, there will be some eliminations, but I think more than anything is changing the roles that we have. And with that in mind, I mean, I think we, as I mentioned to you, we're working really closely with employers. But there are a couple of things that I would highlight. One is we need to make sure that our talent, that they're critical thinkers, right? We need to make sure we are building talented as critical thinkers. Our engineering program, which is absolutely out of this world. I mean, I'd say all of our programs are out of this world, but the engineering program is special. We started, so when the chancellor first started at City Colleges, we had 25 students out of our engineering program that was based out of Wright College at the time. And today, it serves over 650 students a year, and it is predominantly Latinos. The program is so wonderful in that the outcomes are off the charts. The completion, retention, placement, internships. These are the students that are transferring to the MITs, to U of I Granger, to Illinois Tech. I was about to call it IIT, but I know I'm not supposed to call it that anymore. It's Illinois Tech, I think. UIC, wonderful engineering programs around the country and in the state of Illinois. And they're coming to us because they want to recruit our talent because it's that wonderful. And these are students that started with us saying, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. I can't do math. And then they are cared for and supported, and they find out, oh my God, I am really good at math. And they finish within a summer doing calculus. And then they go right into engineering, and then they go on and do all the wonderful things that they do. This is what happens, right? When you have these programs that inspire students and really tap into their brilliance, and then the world is theirs. So we're really proud of the engineering program, and we want to continue to grow it. The plan is to grow to 2,030 students by 2030, and not just at Wright College, across the city and across the district. So we'll continue to expand to other colleges, and we're thrilled about taking that model, which was actually was recognized by an organization called Excelencia in Education as an example of how to serve Latinos. And we're quite proud of that recognition. Another one I would mention is technology, obviously. Chicago in particular, there is a booming tech industry now. And with the Quantum Park that is coming, there is even more jobs that will be available. I mean, between cyber, software development, and then, with quantum in particular, and also the trades. I'm going to actually talk about tech and trades maybe in the same breath here. With quantum, they're going to need, yes, tech, web, and then also people to manufacture the parts, right? And then to maintain and repair the parts. All require skilled trades. So when I think about the jobs that will come out of that industry, it will be trades and technology. And even today, because the Quantum Park is going to take a little bit to grow and to really see the jobs from it, but it's not so far away. I would give it like a couple of years. And we're part of that. Just like we are part of that pipeline growth. We are being asked to provide the talent. So very exciting. So really, it's like for technology, some of the starting wages today, so this doesn't include everything that's coming, it's like $50 an hour. So these are good jobs. And then you can do so much more with it. Another industry that I would highlight is healthcare. And healthcare is, there's just a real need across all of our healthcare institutions. There are so many vacancies. There's so much need, and there aren't enough nurses,
Mm-hmm.
There aren't enough PCTs. Patient care technicians. There aren't enough radiologists. The city of Chicago didn't have a lab tech program at all. And you've got the University of Chicago Medicine building out a pathology lab without a lab tech program to feed into the, you know, the workforce there. So what did they do? They came to city colleges and said, can you be our partner in building our talent? So now we're building a allied health satellite campus right across the street from the University of Chicago Medicine campus, their new pathology labs and where their cancer center will be, all that. So now we are partnering to so many more jobs in that space. And I would, you know, we're also working with the healthcare institutions for not just those allied health and nursing jobs, but there are also tech jobs there, right? There are all sorts of jobs, and they are looking to city colleges to help them with that talent. And I will do an extra plug for trades. I really will. You know, we started with that, and I'll just finish with it. That our trades programs, you know, they had for a while there was a bit of perception, right? That these were the jobs of yesterday, which is really interesting. These are the jobs that are probably going to remain the most stable because of the union relationships, because they take your hands, right? Like you have to do it. And yes, some of it is going to be in robots and all that, but we as humans still need to manage all of that. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be, I think, a growing industry, and the need for talent will continue to grow as AI continues to change jobs. So it's an interesting, you know, it's an interesting finding, right, of how with AI, this is actually going to be here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could not agree more with you, Veronica, that I think that AI is going to not necessarily get rid of jobs, but rethink how we are approached to the workforce and to jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And so how we continue to prepare our community and our talent here in the city, I think is going to become even more important. And, you know, this idea of economic mobility, and I love what you said, economic responsiveness. Mm-hmm. When I think about what does it take for us to be really focused on that economic mobility and responsiveness, I think about three key things that are required, and things that each of you really touched on. One, innovation. And I think city colleges, Veronica, is like just doing some incredibly innovative things around education and ensuring that folks have access and support, right? It is not just, we've got all these programs, right? And people are like, but I still can't take advantage of them. And so you're being so intentional in creating really creative opportunities that are leading to these amazing career paths that are going to create economic mobility. Two, I think about the required investment. This is, you know, it took us a long time to get to this place that we're in, and it is going to require continued commitment and investment from philanthropy and from all of us. And so, Gathia, I'm just really thrilled to continue to hear that the Robert R. McCormick Foundation is just continuing to double their investment and really continuing to push how are we ensuring that both the quality of life plans, but economic mobility and responsiveness stays core to your mission and to your giving. And then the third thing that I think is key is partnership, right? We cannot do, any one of us cannot do this work in isolation. We really need to continue to think about how we are partnering in meaningful ways to advance the needs of untapped talent in our city. And I think by doing that, by having innovation, by having investment, by having commitment, and by having partnership, we're going to continue to push the envelope in really amazing ways. And while that sounded like a closing, it wasn't. I had to add that in there because everything you guys were saying was so incredibly inspiring. But I do want to close with one final just question of optimism, and I'll open it up to both of you to say, as we think about the future of our community, and really, I'm going to say, like, the Latino community, we are a part of the fabric of this incredible city. And so whether it's for the Latino community or for our entire city, what are you most hopeful for? What are you most excited for? And let's just say over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Something that I have been able to see in the 20 years that I've been around is that the raising of Latino leaders, right? Like, we have seen people from these neighborhoods really like taking seats and creating their own tables. Sometimes we're like, oh, we're not invited to the table, or we're not invited to this table. Let's just create our own tables, right? And make sure that we're there representing. We have seen, you know, in the political sphere, in the nonprofit sphere, in the academic sphere, in the philanthropy sphere, everywhere we are seeing more and more the presence of Latino, as I said, from the neighborhoods. Like, in Little Village, we have seen definitely a transformation in those 20 years that I've been there, from congressman to alderman to county, commissioners, everything, right? That came from that same movement. Why? Because both those neighborhoods that I was referring to, particularly Pilsen and Little Village, they have been supportive of movement, right? From sanctuary cities to dreamers to equitable schools to like police accountability. They have definitely influenced policy at the city level, at the national level. I remember when COVID was happening, because of the work that our community health promoters were doing on the ground, I was able to go to the meetings and say, what do you mean that we have to put down social security numbers to get a test? And then they, of course, had to remove it, because you are informed by the community itself in order to shape policy, in order to make change. So these neighborhoods, the Latino community in Chicago overall, we are a story of transformation, perseverance, resilience, right? That's what we bring. Those are our values. We may arrive with very little, but generation after generation, you start seeing that transformation in what we are able to do. It redefines not only the city, right? It redefines the nation. And that's what I'm hopeful for, that we don't let this particular situation, that we don't let it crush our dreams, right? That we actually uh, do, like my grandma used to say, like the phoenix, right? You just transform yourself and you come out of this as a better person, empowered. So that's my wish for our neighborhoods and for what we're seeing in front of us.
Beautiful. Veronica?
Um, I think, well, what gives me hope is that I think about what we did during the pandemic at city colleges, and I think of how that time gave us like the moment to be very innovative, to be very bold, and to meet the moment. And when we came out of it, we truly, I can confidently say, we came out stronger than ever before. And I do believe that right now we have the ability to do it again. When I think about what our communities need, I think of, I think of how the household income is going down, right? It's decreasing. We have people leaving the labor market because they're scared to leave their homes, regardless of status. There's a reduction in SNAP and Medicaid. Our students' needs are increasing, and their need to get access to that and to then have access to upwardly mobile career pathways has never been more important than now. And at City Colleges, I am hopeful that we will be responsive, and we are going to be responsive. We have a partnership with the Greater Chicago Food Depository. We will have markets at every one of our city colleges that will offer not just groceries for our students to take home, but meals for them to take home for their families to just stick in the oven or in the microwave and have a meal ready for them. So I believe that we are really positioned to serve them today and to make sure they have the opportunities to grow once they are done at city colleges. So that makes me really hopeful.
Veronica, and with that, I'm so grateful to the both of you. We are just about out of time, but I want to take a moment to thank each of you and to all of our viewers for tuning in. I'm going to take away a couple of things from this conversation. Be responsive, be innovative, partner, and remain resilient as we have always been. As a reminder to everybody, Conversations with Cara is our series of discussions we host throughout the year on topics around our work to eradicate poverty. Stay up to date on upcoming conversations as well as the latest and greatest from Cara Collective by following us at Cara Chicago on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and by signing up for our newsletter at the link in the chat. And with that, I hope everyone makes it a great day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.